Hello students, how are you? In our today's class, we will start chapter 2 of history, the rise of new kings and kingdoms in the early medieval period, that is 700 to 1200 AD. A number of small kingdoms came up in North India after the death of Harshvardhana in 647 AD. They were mostly being governed by the rulers who had been Samantas. Samantas means big landlords. Now they had grown more powerful and claimed political authority in a bigger area. Political developments of century 700 to 1200. Tripartite struggle. The parties involved in the tripartite struggle, they were the rulers who belonged to Gurjar Pratiharas, Rashtrakutas and Pala dynasties who fought for the control over Kannauj. Because there were three parties in this long drawn conflict, historians often describe it as the tripartite struggle. And why this struggle happened? The reason for this tripartite struggle was the fertile Kaveri Valley, because it was very fertile land and ruler they fought for centuries to get control over it so that they could have control over it and get taxes from the peasants. The Rajputs. In around 9th and 10th century, in several kingdoms of central and western India, the rulers called themselves Rajputras or Rajput. Rajput is a derivative of a Sanskrit word which means son of a king. Rajput were recognized for their bravery, faithfulness, and royalty. They were the warriors who fought in the battles and took care of the governing functions. The Rajput originated from western, eastern, northern India and from some parts of Pakistan. They enjoyed their eminence during 6th to 12th centuries. Until 20th century, Rajput ruled in trans majority in the princely states of Rajasthan and Saurashtra. The Rajputs were considered to be Kshatriyas. They were divided into two Vanshas, Chandravanshi and Suryavanshi. Among the Rajputs, Pratiharas, Chauhanas, Solanki and Parmaras were the most important. But in their ego, they neglected the northwest frontier borders. This drew the Arab and Turkish invaders into northwest frontier regions of India, and Sindh was the first state in the Indian subcontinent to become a target of the Muslim attack. The Muslim invasion of India. The new religion of Islam has emerged in the 7th century AD in Arabia. Sindh was attacked by Muhammad bin Qasim and he defeated Dahir, the ruler of Sindh. After this, Multan was also captured after the death of Muhammad bin Qasim. His successors were not capable and they could not penetrate further in India. Rajput rulers of Gujarat, Rajasthan, and Malwa also resisted them. Invasion of Mahmud of Ghazni. In this slide, you can see the picture of Mahmud of Ghazni. Mahmud of Ghazni was the most famous ruler of Ghaznewid dynasty. The political dynasty the political disunity of India encouraged Mahmud to invade India. Mahmud raided India 17 times between 1000 AD and AD 1027 and he never lost a single battle. He plundered many cities, palaces but his main targets were wealthy temples. He also looted the famous Somnath temple of Gujarat in AD 1025. Mahmud used why he attacked India. He attacked for the following reasons. He wanted to loot the wealth of India because he loved wealth. He wanted wealth also to meet the cost of the army and warfare, for he wanted the expansion of his empire. He wanted to satisfy his ego as one of the greatest conquerors of the world. He used this massive wealth to build a magnificent capital city at Ghazni. Al-Biruni, a great scholar who had accompanied Mahmud Ghazni in his attacks on India, has written a book in the Arabic language called Kitabul Hind, which gives us a lot of interesting information about Indian society and culture, invasion of Mahmud Ghori and the Battle of Tarain. Between the years 1175 to 79 AD, Muhammad Ghori attacked and captured Indian provinces in the northwest of India for establishing his political rule as well as to establish Islam. There, Muhammad Ghori defeated the Rajput Confederacy led by Prithviraj Chauhan in the second battle of Tarain that happened in 1192 AD. But in the first battle of Tarain, which happened in 1191 AD, Prithviraj Chauhan had defeated him. In 1192, Muhammad Ghori defeated Prithviraj Chauhan, but Muhammad Ghori was killed soon by the rebels in Punjab. His territories passed under the control of Qutbuddin Aibak, his brave general who founded the Delhi Sultanate in India. So in this slide you can see picture of Qutbuddin Aibak who ruled after Muhammad Ghori. Next is the Chola Empire in the south, 9th to 12th century. The Chola dynasty rose to prominence when in 850 AD it was founded by rose to prominence in 850 AD. It was founded by Vijayalaya of Uraiyur. The most important Chola rulers were Rajaraja I or Raja the Great and Rajendra I. Vijayalaya defeated the Pallavas and snatched Tanjore from them. Tanjore was then made the capital of Cholas. By the end of 9th century, the Cholas were able to defeat the Pandyas too. The Chola kingdom grew under Rajaraja I. Rajaraja defeated the eastern Chalukyas of Vengi, the Pandyas of Madurai and Gangas of Mysore. He also invaded Lanka and conquered its north portion. Rajendra Chola was also an able warrior and administrator. Like his father, he even went up to Bengal and captured some areas of the Ganga region. He built a city called Gangai Konda Cholapuram. The city became the new capital of Cholas. So the successors of Rajendra I were weak, and so the empire started declining after his death. The expansion also, foreign trade also expanded during the Chola rule. Under the Cholas, the trade and maritime activities flourished and agriculture also expanded. How was the Chola administration? The king was the head of the administration of the Cholas, and all powers were concentrated in his hands. And a council of ministers advised the king, and army in Chola comprised of elephants, cavalry, infantry and a strong navy. Chola Empire was divided into mandalams, valanadus, nadus, kotams and gramams. Revenue administration. Agriculture was prosperous as the rulers provided irrigation facilities to the farmers. The state fixed 1/3 of the produce as tax. Canals, wells and tanks were dug out to facilitate agriculture during the Chola period. Provincial administration. The empire was divided into mandalams or provinces, and the princes of the royal family were appointed governors of the provinces. And as I told you earlier, further they were divided into Valanadus, Nadus, Kurams, and village was the basic unit of administration. How was the local government during Chola Empire? Every village was administered by an assembly called Ur. Sometimes a few villages were grouped together and were administered by Mahasabha. The assemblies enjoyed full powers and were supervised by royal officials. The temple architecture and bronze sculptures. Chola Empire was famous for its temple architecture and bronze sculptures also. In this picture, the Brihadeshwar temple is shown and the famous bronze sculptures of Lord Shiva is shown in this picture. The temple architecture and bronze sculptures. Chola kings built temples and endowed them with great wealth. The temples, they were not only the places of worship but also as center of economic activity, and temples served as center of craft production like bronze and stone sculptures, carving, stone cutting, etc. Dance forms also developed in the temples. It was an age of cultural greatness. A large number of stone inscriptions have been instrumental in constructing the history of Cholas of that period. Indeed, it was an age of cultural greatness. So, with this, we finish our chapter. Thank you.